Okay, so you have Drake doing a big show in London trying to win people back, and then you have Kanye doing a big show in Shanghai trying to turn the page on several years of bad headlines, and then Malice and Pusha reunited at last as Clipse for their fourth album, the first in 16 years. It's a big weekend in hip-hop. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Pablo The Don is here. Huda Hassan is here. Amha is here. Hello to all of you.
Hello,
hey,
hello.
everybody.
Hi, it's nice to have you here. What a delight. Okay, there's a lot to talk about. We're not going to waste any time. People have waited long enough. Let's just hear a little bit of the new Clipse that just dropped. Here's a taste.
Misery's fueling your aggression. Jealousy's turned into obsession. Reality TV is mud wrestling. Some sign checks I know better than. Beware of my name that there's delicate. You know I know where you're delicate. Crush you to pieces, I hum a breath of it. I will close your heaven for the hell of it. You think it'd be
That song is called Chains and Whips. It is featuring Kendrick Lamar, but I can't play you the Kendrick verse because it is all profanity. I'm not going to lie to you. Their brand new album is called Let God Sort 'Em Out. 16 years, I think, is long enough that if you're invested in Clipse and you're like, finally, at last. And if you don't know who Clipse are, then you're wondering why everyone is so excited about this album dropping. Pablo, maybe we should set the scene here and just like remind people why this drop is a big deal.
I mean, for me, Clipse's Grindin' alone is like the most played beat at a lunch table in every school in America, I think. I think everybody was trying to recreate the Grindin' beat on a lunch table. So for me, this Clipse reunion is huge. Personally, like you said, it's been 16 years since they've been together. Pusha T was the president of Good Music for a time. Malice found God randomly. And then Pusha T had a very solid career. I know a lot of younger people probably know him best from the Drake beef, but in general, Pusha T has had such a solid solo career that I think rivals a lot of different people that are in the rap game right now. And I think this reunion is for people my age, and people who are younger should really get invested and really go back and learn about Clipse and then listen to this project too.
What I like about this is that everything that you just said, like, it's like a Wikipedia page, right? Where there's a bunch of like other hyperlinks, like, oh, Pusha T had that gigantic diss of Drake. Actually, to call it a diss might be an understatement because it was how the world learned that Drake has a child. Pusha T revealed it in song. He said, "You are hiding a son." That is the kind of level that we're working with here, and that line is sort of like, unforgettable in the history of hip hop. And then the other thing that happened is Malice found God and then said, "Call me no Malice," and then everyone still calls him Malice. And so I kind of feel a little bit bad about that. But look, usually when an album comes out, there's all this like kind of like nice little rollout. You get all these interviews, but there's been some great shade thrown at people like like Travis Scott. Matt, let's talk about the origins, let's say, of Pusha, of Malice, of the way that we got them, because their original sound was sort of known as coke rap, mostly drug boasts, right, over incredible beats and just having a great time on the streets. You've had your first listens through this album. How do you think you compare where Clipse are now to where we maybe first met them?
So, like, I'd say when it comes to the Clipse, I think of them as being uniquely Virginian. They have like a uniquely Virginian sound, and I think when we think of Virginia, we think of the Neptunes and we think of Chad and Pharrell, but we need to think of the Clipse too. They're just as indelible to that. And I think that the whole coke rap thing. I mean, I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit of a kind of like. It's become a pejorative in some way. It's become a marginalizing way to think of these guys. It's like calling Scorsese like a mob filmmaker. These are guys that are like using the sale of drugs, the use of drugs, the production of them to tell this grander story about the quote unquote inner city, about America, and to tell a grander story. And I think they do it to great effect, frankly. But like this record for me, I mean, this is like adult contemporary rap, and I think we don't see enough of it. I think they're in some way among the first non-superstars, not Jay-Z, not Snoop, not LL Cool J, to add their names to this tradition in like a viable and lucrative way. I think this is evidence of a genre that is maturing. People forget that rap is still in its nascent years in a lot of ways. So this example is actually really important. And like contrasted with the likes of Andre 3000, who goes on our interviews and says, well, I'm old now and I don't have anything to talk about, which for me is like such a loss, because it's a beautiful thing to be able to watch the stories of these men and women from the time that they are young and figuring things out to the time they are entering their 50s and are now comfortable in life. I think it's an example that particularly, younger fans of the culture, people that have a pejorative view of the culture need to see more.
First, I just want to pick up on the idea that calling it coke crap is pejorative. Like, I think that is true for certain audiences. I certainly don't think that's true if you follow hip hop, right? Which is to say that, like, these are the colors that you paint with. What you paint can be Starry Night. What you paint can be like just like the grandest thing in the world. It's just that I do think that they're particularly attracted to these colors in terms of painting them, and they're better at it than everybody else. The thing that Matt just said there, Huda, is interesting to me. This idea that we don't have a lot of rap elders, right? Like the sort of the idea of aging hip hop artists. Like, that's the thing that we've talked about a little bit on the show. Jay-Z's 444 is maybe the best / only example that I can think of a rapper who sort of steps into the middle age and saying, I have some stuff to reckon with. I have my youth to reckon with. And I also, like, I'm a man and my idea of manhood is changing now. That album, an incredible album. He did, I think he delivered that idea really well. When you see Clipse sort of operating in the same space, does it give you the same kind of idea? Are you sort of like getting the same kind of vibes of like, what does it mean for us to be in the middle of our lives and still rapping?
Yeah, I mean, seeing the drop of the video, So Be It, really like ignited something emotional in me, I think, for maybe all of us in many ways, because this Clipse is like definitely entering into a multi-general location, right? And even what Matt's saying as well too, like if we think about the premature death that has been exposed to so many rappers of that generation in many ways as well too. There's different political reasons why we don't see people manifest part of
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But just like Pablo was saying, like I grew up on the Clipse grinding beat being literally permeated like through my brain. Like catch me in Scarborough going to some of my family neighborhoods, I'm knocking on their door using that beat, right? Like at my big age, it's been 20 plus years. It's like it really does live rent free in my brain. But I think it also like reveals the Clipse's multi-generational appeal. And I don't think that if this return happened in 2016, it would have been as impactful as it is today. And I think that has to do with the current state of hip hop. I think that there's kind of a desperation for many of us. As we all know, unfortunately, this Drake Kendrick beef that has really permeated the air for the past like 2 years at this point. It feels like the Clipse came along and said, let's redirect our attention. Actually, there is a industry plant. Let's talk about Travis Scott. I think it's wonderful. I'm excited by it.
Well, it's also, I gotta say, like the rollout of it has been not what I maybe expect out of a Clipse album, right? Like the idea of, hey, here's how Clipse would operate, and then you've seen them sort of like do. The rollout has been heavily involving Louis Vuitton because like, that is where Pharrell is right now. It feels a little bit more corporate. They sort of also put it out on Jay-Z's label instead of their original label. Huda, what'd you make of the rollout?
Yeah, I think the rollout's interesting. I think that the rollout, even it being rooted in Louis Vuitton, where Pharrell has now been the creative director since Virgil Abloh's passing. But I think it reveals that relationship between fashion and rap, which really has materialized over the decades, right? And if we really want to analyze it, I think it's a method that's used for people to straddle power and the class ladder. But with regards to Roc Nation, I think it's not too surprising for me that Roc Nation's behind this. I think Roc Nation is part of Jay-Z's growing empire. Roc Nation has had a big hand in a lot of hip hop that we've consumed in recent years, whether it's the artists we're listening to or the feuds that we're engaging in. Jay has the ability to dictate Kendrick coming to the Super Bowl or getting his CEO a Trump pardon, right? Or playing into the politics of Wayne and 21 Savage when it comes to carceral politics and border politics. So like this is kind of an example of Jay-Z's growing empire, I think, in many ways.
I think it's a nice contrast and a nice maybe opportunity for us to jump to our next topic, because like what you see in Clipse is this idea of, returning after 16 years later. There's a professionalization of this rollout that I'm really interested in. Like this idea of, Louis Vuitton is involved, Pharrell is involved, Jay-Z is involved. There's this notion of there are black people in power, and they're able to direct how we see this and how we experience this. And it doesn't feel messy to me. What feels messy to me is like maybe like the gossip aspect of it. Contrast that, I think, with the mess that we are seeing in Shanghai. So I want to talk about this because I think there was a time when it was kind of charming to say, oh, I miss the old Kanye. Like, I can't even say that anymore. I think I'm like a little bit too far removed from that. It's been the kind of year where just in the last year alone, he had a bunch of anti-Semitic rants. He literally had a song called Heil Hitler. That's just what the song was called. At what point he sold official t-shirts with swastikas on them. This week, a couple things happened. Australia canceled his visa, and then a rap festival that he was supposed to be headlining in Slovakia was called off. Organizers said that, yeah, media pressure and other artists kind of pulled out of that. But still, tomorrow, he's going to be performing to over 70,000 people in Shanghai, China. That feels like a messy choice. It feels like an interesting choice to me. Matt, maybe I'll kick it off with you because the idea of Kanye going to China to do this is interesting. China's not known for being particularly open to Western artists. What does this tell you that Kanye is going there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say here. I think, for one, it is evidence of the Eastern world kind of like opening up to the West. I think, politically speaking, some of these countries and leaders understanding how lucrative a process that normalization can be, quote unquote. This is a world in which the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and the president of the UAE have turned Riyadh and Dubai into South Beach style, like dystopian escapist paradises. We live in an upside down world. Like for Kanye, I think that China can be an alternative pathway for him. And like, he's not participating in this tradition that I'm about to talk about in good faith, but there is a long and storied tradition of Black artists here in the West that have historically exiled themselves or historically ventured off into other corners of the world, escaping the conditions of their lives in America or elsewhere in the West. And these places used to be Paris, Moscow, Istanbul, countries like Guinea and Ghana. Today it might be China or Dubai. And like, and I say that while understanding that, Baldwin and Stokely Carmichael and Paul Robeson were fleeing state persecution. Kanye is fleeing accountability and is fleeing his own anti-Semitism, as you've just laid out there, right? But I think there's a kind of parallel there in that Kanye knows, just as Baldwin knew, just as MBS knows, that the cultural footprint of his country is totalizing and it's incredibly lucrative. And that, the Chinese government stands to benefit from platforming it in a controlled environment. And I think, using him as the kind of paragon of that, I think is really useful for all sides. I think Kanye also gives us the utility of showing us the limitations of the thing we call cancel culture. Like the irony about being canceled is that it has always been a top-down affair. Like governments cancel, multinational corporations cancel. It has never been about consumers, never. Yeah. If you think about people that have actually been canceled, we're talking about, again, Paul Robeson, Colin Kaepernick, Stokely Carmichael, and so Kanye,
corporations have the power to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. It has never been consumers having a kind of buying power to be able to dictate that in the marketplace. It just hasn't been. And Kanye, in his infallibility, reveals this. The guy is incredibly radioactive. He's persona non grata, yet he possesses a certain invincibility, right? Like you can't really stop him. In the way that Donald Trump said, I could shoot a man on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. It's like, I think that that idea ushered in this kind of new moment where I can do the most absurd thing. I can violate every red line, every cardinal sin, and I will still be okay. And he seems to have this kind of this certain way of orienting himself in the world. And so, I think this show on one hand is just a concert, but in the other, he's also giving an example to other artists like him that want to be able to say, well, you cannot stop me, and I will do and say whatever I want, and I will always be okay.
I'll tell you this. When I woke up this morning, I did not anticipate you connecting Kanye in China to James Baldwin in Switzerland and France, but also but both rooted in the same idea of, in America, being a Black man has consequences that you can't always control. And then there's something about being in different spaces where you say, you know what, there's maybe more different freedoms to be found here. Pablo, I want to bring you in on this because I think like there's something interesting to me about if this concert goes well. Because I think there's a learned thing that can happen if someone like Kanye can go to Shanghai and sell out a place of, playing to 80,000 people. What does that tell you if this concert goes well?
Yeah, I think like Matt said, it might open the door for other people to try to explore this, to think that they can do and say and do the things that Kanye does. I would tread carefully because do you have the same track record, career, history, connection to the people that Kanye does? But they still will probably attempt it and try it, thinking that maybe this is a safe space. Maybe Kanye himself will bring people along with them. I mean, you guys know I'm a big WWE fan, so once Saudi Arabia opened up its doors to WWE, I knew this was coming. I knew something like that was coming. I knew when I saw Mariah Carey and John Legend go perform over there, it was only a matter of time before someone who's not very looked at very favorably in America is going to go over there and see what they can do. The tickets sold 60,000 in a couple of days. He's got a fan base. The man's going to go on a Stephon Marbury type of run over there.
Exactly.
Like I can't deny that. He's going to have his Marbury moment.
Huda, there is something a little bit disorienting about watching Beyonce do hotel openings in Dubai, right? Like about watching like all these artists that you're like, I think I'm a little bit invested in what you have to say about power in the West. And then in an entirely different kind of context, you say, I don't know, you feel a little aligned with power, or at least like this feels like largely transactional. What are your thoughts as you watch all of these sort of like, let's say, excursions happen?
Yeah, I think I think what both folks have been saying already, like this is a battle of empires in many ways. And the way that empire emerges is obviously rooted in economics, in military or militaristic standards, but there's also cultural imperialism that's also very important. And I think that that's been like a missing piece for China in many ways. 2017, 2016, we used to see people like Justin Bieber and Katy Perry get banned from performing in China merely for just wearing like the wrong outfits, right? Yeah. Like this is how strict the process has been in the past. And like Pablo pointed out, now we're seeing Mariah Carey being invited and then now Kanye West. And I think that this is happening at a very strategic time as well too. As a Toronto girl living in New York, I'm definitely seeing day to day, there's a brain drain happening in America right now. And cultural workers and artists and creatives are fleeing. And I think in Canada, we're seeing that, and that's another conversation. But I think that China is strategically capitalizing off of this moment. And as I looked into this more, I was very surprised to find that Kanye has a very cult-like following, I think, globally. And that has in many ways dissipated over the past like 2-3 years. Surprisingly, his cult has ethics and some values. But I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that in China. The amount of graffiti and wall art and just murals dedicated to Kanye that have even emerged in the past year. There's already stats that we're seeing that reveal Kanye actually has a really sizable supportive fan base in China, even when we see this information being tweeted and how much people are responding to the news about Kanye versus Kendrick and other folks. So I think this actually could be part of his comeback, strangely enough. And I think there's a larger conversation to be had about cancel culture and who actually controls that.
Okay, so we've had the Clipse comeback, we've had the Kanye attempted comeback, and I would like to keep things going with this.
What did I miss? When I was looking at y'all and cooking with y'all and giving out verses and bookings to y'all, making sure eyes were hit, man, what did I miss? When you was all in my crib, looking word for word at all of the shows, you always felt like this, man, what did I miss?
First, I just want to issue an apology. Like, even I thought Drake was over, and that was clearly a mistake, because all it takes is one song. All it takes is one song. That is a new Drake single, What Did I Miss? The world heard through an interesting kind of rollout. He was streaming himself in the back of an ice truck. Huda, you watched the hour-long rollout. Can you just describe it for those people who maybe miss the whole Iceman stream?
It is, okay, the rollout has been interesting, partly eerie, partly weird, partly unnecessary. I think Drake is lost in the sauce in many ways. I wonder who his friends are and who he's around. But the rollout basically included a 45-minute episode around the Iceman. And this is actually like a real place in Toronto. We see Drake driving through the city. I think anyone from the city, anyone who could geographically map it, can identify some of the intersections and locations that he's passing through. But for me, the immediate feeling that I had when I watched this, much like when I observed some of the releases that Drake released last year in response, I'm saying quote with quote, to the Kendrick beef, right?
Yeah.
when he dropped that little MP3 package where he, for the first time, cites a lot of Toronto artists, a lot of incredible Toronto artists like Savannah Ray, that to me is very connected to what we're seeing with this rollout. Drake has always had a love for Toronto. I'm never, ever going to contest that. And anyone who knows me knows I have hated Drake since 2012. It's a long, long time coming. I really view this man as critically as I can, but he does love Toronto. I think that he is going through an identity crisis right now because Kendrick accurately called him out for his relationship to home and his identity and his city, right? And I think that he's now strategically deploying home as a response to this very wildly embarrassing moment for himself, right? And as someone from Toronto who appreciates these visuals, these aesthetics, these references, I am pretty disappointed that it took him arriving to his lowest point to acknowledge home and show love for home.
Counsel for the defense, Matt Amha, you may approach the bench. You have
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're not about to characterize me like that.
Okay, I won't do it. But okay, tell me about what you thought when you were watching the Iceman stream.
It's so funny because to the joke that you just made, people have this impression that if you talk about him favorably in any kind of way, you're like
Aubrey's Angels.
You're a booster.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're not.
Absolutely not what's happening here. But like I think what I agree with essentially everything that Huda just said. I mean, but so. We've spent a lot of the last year talking about what he might be thinking and feeling, and it turns out that he doesn't have much to say just yet, And like I think in some way this is a guy whose messaging feels stunted, and he's been making a version of the same song for a long time now. This may be the only time where there's some like veracity to the claims he's making in terms of my friends are betraying me, everyone's turning their back on me, I don't know who to trust.
But it's actually real maybe this time.
Exactly, yeah. Right. And like, it quite literally is, right? Like he has, I mean, all of these guys who he has had a hand in making turn their back on him in one fell swoop. But I think at some point when you're faced with those kinds of conditions, when your entire social environment turns their back on you, you should reconcile your own complicity in their betrayal against you. There should be some introspection there, and I'm waiting to hear that. I think it still might come. Ultimately, all we have is the single so far, but I think he when he wants to be, Drake can rap his ass off. He can be deeply honest and introspective when it's time to be. And I hope that he recognizes this is a time more demanding of that treatment than any other time in his career.
Pablo, maybe one more minute on Drake here. He's taking the stage. He's doing this London Wireless Festival in just a few hours. 3 headlining nights. Is this surprising to you that this is the thing he's doing right now?
No, he's been outside ever since Not Like Us dropped. Like, the man has been outside on a tour, dropping music, doing something, hooking up with Party Next Door to be in our faces instead of sitting down and, like Matt said, being introspective about what just occurred. He is out here trying to be like, I'm totally fine. He's got bullet holes in his jackets now to prove that he's all good. No, you're not, sweetheart. Like, no, you're not. And it's okay. It's okay that you're not. But like, I do wish you would take a step back, sit down and do this. And it is interesting about Wireless Fest, him going out there for 3 days. But at the same time, it's going to be packed. People are going to be there. I just wish he would take a step back every once in a while.
I was watching all those streamers like open their invitation to the Wireless Festival because he invited a bunch of streamers. Like, they're all got the golden ticket, and they're absolutely going to Willy Wonka's factory. Okay, before we go, a gigantic, huge surprise album drop from Justin Bieber. The new record's called Swag. I just want to play real quick. This song's called Go Baby.
So cry on my shoulder, that low melody. Cry on my shoulder, I know you're a breeze. Lay it all down and I can love it away. Just stay by my side. So go baby, go baby, go baby.
It's called R&Bieber, okay? Look it up. Okay, the album just dropped. We're going to talk a lot more about this album in a minute. But Pablo, before we go, I just want to hear your first maybe gut reaction to the fact that we got a surprise Justin Bieber drop.
I mean, in America, we call him light-skinned Bieber, so this is him coming back to that.
Here too.
Yeah, light-skinned Bieber's back, baby. I've got my album ever since Journals. I've been waiting for this moment. I feel like Justin Bieber, though he's been posting a lot sporadically and erratically on Instagram and being very confusing and kind of like cutting off friendships and relationships, I think he's doing the thing that maybe we want Drake to do, which is like sitting down and thinking about his mental health and being introspective, what it means to be a father, what it means to be a husband. And the first reaction from me from listening to this just this morning is like, wow, like maybe he is growing and maybe he's learning to express his growth through his music. while also like trolling us online, which I think is a incredible way to use social media. But also, I still think he's a little unwell.
It is clocking to you that he's somewhat standing on business.
He's standing on business in multiple ways, and some of it just seems a little bit out there. But if that was the point to get this album out there, I'm gonna have to give him a little bit of space.
I gotta go spend more time with that album. I gotta say goodbye to all of you. Thank you so much for your time. You guys are the best. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, the best time. Huda Hassan, Pablo The Don, Matt Amha. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Hey, we're going to be back next week. We would love to see you then.